Hello everyone, my name is Lowko, and welcome to a new video of StarCraft II Heart of the Swarm. Today we're gonna take a look at a game that I have played a few days back. I believe it was like, I think this was like last week or so, one of the last games before I went on my little tiny weekly break because of the semester starting up. And it's a Zerg vs Zerg on a map called Whirlwind. I believe this map is called Whirlwind. Yeah, Whirlwind Alley. Guys, give me a break. I've only played this map maybe like 300-400 times or so, so I'm not obliged to know the actual name. But it's going to be a Zerg vs Zerg. As you might have noticed, we are watching this game completely through my vision of view, so I'm going to try and explain the things that I was thinking about while playing this game the best time I can. And as you might have noticed, I made a video lately about Zerg vs Zerg 10 pools, and you might notice in this game that I'm actually opening up with a hatch into a gas geyser, into a spawning pool. Now this is obviously going to be pretty much the complete opposite of the 10 pool strategy. So considering that, we instantly have to realize that by going for this strategy, I basically give up any sort of chance to win if my opponent would have gone for anything cheesy. Now it turns out that by scouting his hatchery timing right there at the natural, I could see, okay, my opponent is not going for anything cheesy whatsoever. There's most likely a 15 pool, 15 hatch, considering the timing of that, so I can just safely continue whatever I'm doing. I don't need to worry about anything, but it's good to realize that if my opponent would have gone for something like a 10 pool, any variant of it, I probably would have died because my Zerglings wouldn't have come out until my drones are already dead. So here we go, my spawning pool is finishing up. I'm going to be starting 2 queens. Now it is cool to talk a little bit about the differences that the gas before the spawning pool makes after a hatchery. So what it does allow me to do is actually get Zergling speed super quickly. Now as you can see, I'm instantly starting it and I still have 3 drones mining in gas. Now the reason for this is that I actually have a little bit of a timing window that I can try and use. I'm going to try and hit a little window in which I will have Zergling speed and Banelings out, and my opponent might not have it yet. So if you think a little bit about what my opponent was doing, well, my opponent was going for a spawning pool into a hatchery. So what I did instead was go for a hatchery into a gas geyser into a spawning pool, which just straight up means that any sort of aggression for me and any sort of upgrade will finish a whole lot earlier because my gas geyser is like a solid minute or so earlier than my actual opponent's was. So both queens are out right now. My Baneling nest rather is on the way, and I have this little queen actually trying to kill my overlord. I actually don't remember if we managed to kill it or not. I'm going to try and use the 2 Zerglings that I made to block the queen from advancing. Just going to sacrifice 2 Zerglings in order for an overlord to live. I actually hope I will manage to survive that overlord. I actually don't remember. But here we go. My first injects are popping off. I'm going to be starting 22 Zerglings on the production tab. And as you can see on the production tab as well, if you take a look right here, this will actually line up pretty much perfectly with everything that is going on. So I have a Baneling nest finished. I have 22 Zerglings on the way, and my Zergling speed is done. So this is all coming forth from me getting a gas geyser before my actual spawning pool. So you can see the incredibly strong timing push that this actually opens up. Because I can actually decide to either drone up right behind this, which it turns out that I'm not doing because I'm actually making more and more Zerglings on the production tab. But if I wanted to, I could have just gone for a big follow-up with drones. Now I might do this in a little bit, we will see. But it turns out my opponent is having a Baneling nest of himself right here. He's having a spine crawler up as well. And I'm morphing a whole lot of Banelings. Now I'm trying to do a little bit of damage before anything is going on, but he has 3 queens up. He's morphing his own Banelings. He is having a whole lot of stuff up just defensively. So I'm honestly not completely sure if I should be making all these Zerglings that I'm creating right now. But here we go. I'm going to be running into the natural of my opponent, and I kill absolutely 0. Like, I was planning to kill drones right there, or at least kill like a bunch of queens, or maybe a few, like a big Zergling hit, but no. Nope, didn't really happen. So as you can see on the production tab, I'm going to follow this up with 6 drones and a spine crawler. I don't need to play any more aggressive. Now, I still have all these units that were still in the production tab, so I'm just gonna try and micro the best I can, trying to just put as much pressure on my opponent as I can, because those units, like, I could now decide to put all these units at my own home base, but that would like really make it really tricky for me to do anything. So I'm just trying to buy as much time. I'm going to be starting to drone up again. Been doing that for a little while. I have about 2 base saturation right now, and I did manage to force a whole lot of units out of my Zerg opponent. I'm getting my own lair up right now, because since I know that I will most likely have a little bit of an economy advantage just because of the sheer amount of defense that my opponent was forced to make, I might have a little bit of a timing window to go for this thing called the Mutalisk. Now, to go for Mutalisk, you pretty much always need to go for 3 bases. If you can see on the production tab right now, my opponent does decide to go for Roaches. And Roaches versus Mutalisk doesn't really end up very well, because obviously Roaches can't shoot up. And there's a really tiny timing window that my opponent could use, which is right when Roach speed would finish. But I don't even know if my opponent is already going for a lair. He does have 3 spine crawlers in production right now, but I have not been making any units for the longest time. Now, my opponent does have a lot of Zerglings out right now, so he is going to try a little bit of a counter-attack. I do have a spine crawler of my own, however. I also have a few Banelings, but he is going to hold position in my mineral line. Now, whenever that happens, it's pretty important that you don't move the drones. I know it might be a gut instinct to select all your drones and like right-click them on a mineral patch, but what would happen is that you simply run your drones through all these Zerglings, and the Zerglings will just kill a whole lot more. So whenever he holds positions in a mineral line like that, and you don't manage to get out, just let him mine, just continue onwards, and you will most likely have a slight advantage, because if you take a look at the worker kill tab so far, you managed to kill only 4 workers with that, which is definitely not used, or not really plenty. So if you take a look at the income tab right now, which is honestly the most important tab in Zerg vs Zerg, we are relatively even. Now, I do have a 3rd base going up. As we can see on the production tab, my opponent does also have a 3rd base that I don't know about just yet. But my Spire is already about halfway, a little bit over halfway done, whereas my opponent's lair is not done at all. So even though I'm not having an economy advantage, and even though I'm not having a base up on my opponent, I am having quite a significant tech advantage. Now, I will try and make as many Zerglings right now as I need to try and get a deny on that base. Now, obviously, I don't really know if I will be able to do just that. So these Zerglings and those Banelings that I'm making right now are sort of a risk that I'm taking. If I don't take out a base with this, I might as well just straight up lose the game. But here we go. My opponent does have a whole lot of stuff. Going to try and micro this the best that I can, because I don't want to lose everything. And there's battles going on all over the map. Now, my Spire is done. I did manage to finish that one a little while ago. But will I manage to get the console on that base? Here we go. I have Banelings also at the 3rd base. Going to try and use those to distract all the Zerglings while using my own Zerglings to target fire the 3rd instead. Now, I am target firing it down right now, and my Banelings are just buying enough time, and I do manage to get a kill on the 3rd base. Now, this is absolutely crucial. I now know that I will have a significant gas income advantage. I don't know right now whether or not my opponent is going for Mutalisk. As we know on the production tab, my opponent does decide to not do that at all, but if my opponent would have gone for Mutalisk himself, I would have simply had about 50% extra income, just because of the sheer amount of extra gas that I would be getting opposed to my opponent. So I did manage to get the 3rd base kill. And how I'm going to push the advantage? Well, I'm going to just make a few static defense. As you can see, I am making a bunch of spine crawlers and sport crawlers everywhere, just for defensive purposes. And as long as I manage to get my 3rd base up and deny my opponent's 3rd base, I should have a pretty good time. Now, I'm going to be starting to really ramp up my Mutalisk production right now. I don't really need anything but Mutalisk. Going to be getting the armor upgrade as well, because I'm still assuming my opponent is also going for Mutalisk himself, which obviously we already know is not happening, because if you take a look at the production tab right now, turns out my opponent is actually going for Hydralisk. Now, how do you kill Hydralisk in Zerg vs Zerg? I know there's a whole lot of Zergs out there that will have been in this similar situation where they go for Mutalisk and Zerglings, and you all of a sudden face Hydralisk and you're like, oh god, what am I supposed to do? Well, I see the Hydralisk right now for the first time, and you instantly want to start your Baneling speed. This is exactly what I'm doing right now as well, because the thing that actually kills Hydralisk the easiest is Banelings. Banelings actually do bonus damage versus Hydralisk. If you manage to roll Banelings into Hydralisk, they will simply just pop and die pretty much. So, the thing though is that you do not want your opponent to get a big amount of them up. You don't want your opponent to have an insane amount of Hydralisk and an insane amount of Roaches out, because then you can't roll your Banelings into that. So I'm going to try and get my Zerglings out, I'm going to try and get more Mutalisk out, but I'm definitely going to need a big push right when my Baneling speed finishes. Once again, if I don't do this little bit of a push that I'm about to do in about a minute or so, I will not be able to do anything versus my opponent, because he will just get Roaches up to defend and shield against the actual Baneling hits. So there we go, I do manage to get a pretty nice pick off right there, killing a few units left and right, making sure that my opponent is completely out of position, which is just a little bit of a nice thing. If you take a look at the income tab, it is still 100% even. Actually, my opponent is even slightly ahead, just in income tab. Which is obviously not really a good thing. So here we go, my Baneling speed is about to finish. It does happen to actually line up with my +1 armor as well on my Mutalisk, so I can go for this timing right here. Now I do realize where always Hydralisks are located, and I will need to roll these Banelings that I have right here straight into that. Now here we go, I'm going to be rolling my Banelings in there separately, using my Mutalisk for an attack move instead, and as you can see, that did an insane amount of damage. Basically, whenever you see an opponent going for a certain situation and goes for a certain counter, like a Hydralisk versus this, you will just be able to make Banelings and most of the time just absolutely murder it. The only thing that is really important to realize is that you do not allow your opponent to get a big amount of them up. Now my opponent does realize, okay, this third base is lost, so he is going to go for a little bit of a counter attack with a whole lot of roaches. So I'm gonna try and actually stop this push. I can't lose the third base right now, because as you might have noticed on the production tab as well, I am going to be droning up my own base once again. Now I do use a few Mutalisks that I still have left to go back to the third base just to clean it up, because I don't want my opponent to start mining from that again. And as long as I stop all these roaches from killing my third base and just making sure that I don't lose this base, I will have a significant advantage. Now if you take a look at the supply count so far, I'm nearly about 30 or 40-ish supply up on my opponent, and it does look like I also managed to save the third base, which will once again give me a gigantic income lead. And the only thing that I need to do is once again not allow my opponent to get a big army up. Now at some point I will just be able to simply outmass him, and I'm pretty sure we are starting to enter that position already. My opponent couldn't really do anything. He couldn't really move out with Hydralisk at all, or he couldn't really move with roaches at all either, just because obviously roaches can't shoot up, and he didn't get a big enough army to deal with all this stuff. Now he does still have a few Hydralisks. I could actually probably take that fight just with the Mutalisks that I had right there, but there's really no reason for me to risk it. So I'm just gonna morph more and more Banelings, going to wait for my reinforcements to get here, and I'm going to morph more and more Banelings as well. Now I'm just making sure that I try and keep the army small of my opponent. As you can see, since he's going for roaches and Hydralisks, he is quite quickly able to get a big army supply up once again. While it was 40 supply up a little bit ago, he is once again getting a little bit ahead. But here we go, I'm going to be rolling all my Banelings once again into all the Hydralisks, which is basically the nail in the coffin, and my opponent does decide to leave the game. Well, thank you guys all for watching. Have an amazing day. Do not forget to smile, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye!